Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
Here's one Colorado skiers have been watching closely. Eldora, the funky little ski area in Boulder County, is about to have new ownership. The neighboring town of Nederland has approved a $120 million agreement to purchase the resort. The deal still has a few hurdles to clear, but the vote signals the town is serious about taking ownership. If it goes through, Eldora would become one of the few city-owned ski areas in the state. Another one I just found out, Winter Park, property of Denver. I'm Arlo Pérez Esquivel. Coming up, body cameras are helping law enforcement do their jobs, but the footage they create is also bogging down the system.
Terabytes of information just growing exponentially every year.
How data overload is a problem for local police and courts. Then, the Trump administration is putting conditions on funding meant to keep our state prepared for things like natural disasters or even terrorist attacks.
You are going to either see a complete elimination of the local emergency management program or a massive reduction.
Are Coloradans at risk? Plus, a family business is being honored by the state after they weathered the storms together and kept it going for more than 100 years.
Love. That's what keeps us going as a family.
It's Thursday, January 8th. Here's the news in Colorado today. If your cloud storage space is getting low from all those cute selfies you took back in 2014, you're not alone. And I'm not just talking about me. Colorado law enforcement agencies have been collecting huge amounts of digital evidence, and they're running out of places to put it. CPR Justice reporter Allison Sherry has been looking into how things that were designed to improve policing, from body cameras to text message searches, are starting to overwhelm entire departments, both how they store this evidence and how they use it effectively. She talked to Bazia about it.
Allison, how much data are law enforcement now dealing with?
So it's a crazy amount. I talked to one investigator at the Denver DA's office named Chris Gray. He told me there's been a 600% increase in audio and video evidence in just the last 5 years.
It's not necessarily just like one piece of the puzzle, it's all of it. It's where all the data is being collected from, and then how do we manage that data? How do we properly report back on that data?
So imagine a situation where 5 or 6 officers respond to a burglary, for example. Each of them is going to be having their own rolling body camera footage. There may be a halo camera at the corner taking pictures of the entrance and the exit of the 7-Eleven. There's dash cam footage, there's surveillance footage, there may be a flock license plate reader right there. 10 years ago, a case like that may have had 3 or 4 digital recordings, and now it's like 50 or 60 digital recordings. And they do have to hold on to it for investigative purposes, for court purposes, for appeal purposes if a person gets convicted. So it's not just something they can just delete.
And you've given us an example there of just one case. Imagine that many times over. How much of this is something law enforcement agencies are required to do versus something they want to do? Are they holding on to all this data also just because it helps them do their jobs?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think officers would say all of this digital evidence has made cases better and stronger. They generally like body-worn cameras. It makes their jobs more transparent, and it clears them of a lot of allegations of wrongdoing when someone just watches the body camera and they see that officers acted appropriately. But it is something they are required to do. Colorado passed a law back in 2020 after George Floyd's murder that required every officer in the state to wear body-worn cameras eventually, and they're all doing that now. So at the time, law enforcement agencies entered into these big contracts with body-worn camera companies to store all of that. But here we are, a few years into that requirement, and the evidence is just overwhelming.
And you've been reporting about the problems with all this evidence. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, the problem right now is basically time, money, and storage for police, prosecutors, and defense attorneys. Tom Raines is the head of the Colorado District Attorney's Council, and he told me that even a minor misdemeanor can generate up to a terabyte of digital evidence. That's like one computer is managing the digital evidence of a small misdemeanor. And some rural police departments in Colorado can't afford that at all. And as for his own office, Raines said that they bought a storage system about 10 years ago. It cost $3 million to get it up and running, and now it runs about $750,000 a year to maintain it. But it is not keeping up, and it doesn't have enough space for everything. And it's interesting because when you talk to Raines, it's one of the rare places where he's pretty sympathetic to the defense attorneys, too.
I think the public defender shares the same problems that DA's offices do in the storage of information. Terabytes of information just growing exponentially every year.
And in fact, the Colorado State Public Defender's Office says it's costing them hundreds of hours of staff time to actually download the camera footage, and then they have to watch the whole thing. So that's, used to take about 2 hours to prepare for, an arraignment, for example, and now it takes about 40.
Strange to think that evidence could be too much of a good thing to have in a case.
Totally.
You've also reported that this is affecting the courts. Is it slowing down cases?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there is a state law that requires people to have a speedy trial. And when you're a public defender or a prosecutor and you're carrying 100 felonies, roughly, a person, and you have to take 40 hours to prepare for one, armed burglary case, you are just working longer. You're going to be asking the judge to extend the time for an arraignment or whatever because you want to make sure you're hearing everything. You got to watch that video of the jail transport to see if your suspect said anything. So without ascribing a bad motive to anyone, every side knows that this is probably making cases stronger, but that they need to figure out how to store this information and also to sort of deal with it when they take everything to court.
On that note, what are you hearing about how this problem could be solved?
Yeah, I wish this was a solution story, but they had public defenders, state prosecutors, and cops work on this together, this big report for the legislature over the course of many months, and no one really could figure out a solution. I think they know that this is going to require a giant injection of cash to hire more people and to store everything, but that's not very realistic in this budget year. So I think it's one of those things where they're just going to fly a flag of this is a problem, and then they're going to try to figure it out as they go along.
CPR Justice reporter Allison Sherry. Thanks, Allison.
You're welcome.
Our state's ability to be prepared for a catastrophe, from natural disasters to terrorist attacks, is at risk. That's due to new Trump administration policies that put strings on federal funding. Colorado's still waiting on millions of dollars in emergency preparedness funds. We were supposed to receive them from FEMA months ago. So state and local officials are preparing, not for disasters, but for the potential future without the federal government as a reliable partner.
We still have to provide those services, and that's the unfortunate part. That's that we've always relied on it, and now we can't.
CPR climate reporter Ishan Thakur has been following the saga. Ishan, I mentioned those new strings on this funding. Can you explain what those are?
So the Department of Homeland Security oversees FEMA. And this year, the Trump administration has tied a lot of federal funding to its mass deportation campaign. So basically what that means is that the administration is saying to states like Colorado and cities like Denver, to receive the money you're entitled to, you have to cooperate with ICE, provide data that can help with deportations, and a lot of other conditions. The problem with all of that is that some of those requirements are illegal under Colorado law. So local officials have been unable to comply, and that means that federal money has not been flowing.
Now, those conditions are being challenged in court, though, right?
Yes. So Colorado and a coalition of blue states have sued the feds over and over again to remove the immigration-related requirements from federal grants. And they've actually won in court several times.
Huh.
Yeah, but because of appeals plus the government shutdown, Colorado hasn't gotten all of its money yet.
All right, so this money, what kind of projects was it supposed to be going towards?
So FEMA's best known function is disaster relief, right? Providing money after hurricanes and fires. But the funds that we're talking about, they're not for disasters per se. They're for emergency preparedness, and Colorado has relied on them for decades. They pay for the state's counterterrorism center and a nuclear weapons detection program. And they also help cover the salaries of dozens of county-level emergency managers. Those managers help triage resources after wildfires, avalanches, and even Excel's power shutoffs a few weeks ago. So they're really important, and the money for that program mostly goes to rural parts of Colorado.
Are we feeling the effects of this holdup yet?
There are a lot of signs of strain coming through. Some municipalities are considering moving money around to fund their county emergency managers. And without more money for that program, there may be layoffs. Denver has also had to scrap training and equipment purchases for a nuclear weapons detection program, and Colorado Springs has had to delay a drone purchase for public safety.
If this becomes the new reality for disaster response, what can Colorado do?
Well, I spoke with Kevin Klein. He leads the state's Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, or DHSEM, and this was his bottom line.
We'll see where the federal dollars shake out, but bottom line is that we have a duty to protect Colorado.
Klein and other state officials fear that things might only get worse from here unless Colorado takes some pretty drastic actions.
How so?
So basically, the state is preparing for a future where the federal government takes a backseat after disasters, and crucially, where it doesn't provide any of the money to help communities prepare for disasters or emergencies. That would be a huge, monumental shift, and that would mean that Colorado would have to shoulder a lot more money to make up for the loss of federal dollars.
All right. But Ishan, as our listeners know, our state is worse than broke. We're looking at dramatically cutting spending next year to keep the budget balanced. So is there any sense of how Colorado is going to manage paying for this?
Well, the governor found some one-time money to cover emergency managers' salaries, but that runs out in June. So he's now asking for an extra $7 million in next year's budget to keep the state's Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management alive. But, we could still be looking at layoffs of county-level emergency managers under that proposal. And that is something Coloradans could really notice next time there's a big wildfire or flood or who knows what else.
CPR's Ishan Thakur, thank you.
You're welcome.
Lots of things have changed in Colorado over the past century, especially for farmers and ranchers. They've traded horse-drawn plows and combines for high-tech tractors and satellite-guided planting. But they also face the pressure of rising costs, encroaching development, and unpredictable weather. And yet, one family in Elbert County, east of Colorado Springs, has managed to keep at it for more than 100 years.
We used to milk cows when I was a little kid until I was grown up enough to go to service. We still milk cows by hand.
That's 94-year-old Warren Gresham, sharing memories of life on the family farm, which is now officially a Colorado Centennial Farm. In all those years, there's been some extraordinary Colorado winters. His son, John, remembers the blizzard of 1972. The snow was so deep, he rode a snowmobile to school right over the fences.
Out on the level is about 4 foot deep. Here in the buildings, it was as high as the buildings.
Like many Colorado ranch families, the Greshams ran cattle while working full-time jobs. John spent decades as a lineman, and his father, Warren, delivered mail during the day and farmed in the evenings.
I don't know that I ever made a living at it because times got to where this small a ranch wouldn't support a family. So had to have a job.
Despite the hard work, Warren says it's a good place to raise a family.
Kept them out of town, kept them out of the bar. Well, most of the time. No, it was a learning process for them also.
That learning process started early.
When I was little, it was driving the pickup while they would throw the hay out of the back of the truck.
That's Warren's granddaughter, Kate Dixon.
We got to drive when we were 6 or 7 years old.
She says the fun didn't stop there.
We have stories out there that I'm sure my parents or grandpa doesn't know about out there, but there's that old milking shed out there. And when it snowed a lot, we would go climb to the top and slide off the roof into a big snow drift.
But of course, on a ranch, you're also bound to have times of heartbreak.
We had this group of first-year heifers. And every night I get a phone call that they needed help pulling a calf or something, and then they would pass away. So we lost like 4 or 5 heifers and their calf in 1 year.
Then came a moment she'll never forget.
I had a calf that I thought I was going to walk in the barn and he was going to be gone. He was so weak, and I walked in there and he was perked up, ready to go, and I named him Tough.
Through snow, drought, and the long nights of calving season, the Grishams say the reason that they've lasted a century is simple.
Love. That's what keeps us going as a family.
I think it's kind of rare anymore to have, and my grandkids too now, 4 generations working on the same land. It's neat.
Our thanks to CPR's Haley Sanchez for this reporting on the Gresham Farm, which has been honored as one of Colorado's centennial farms. You can read more at the link in our show notes. Reporting for today's show came from CPR's Molly Cruz and Haley Sanchez. Make sure to leave us a review. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.